The tears stung Abigail Whittaker's eyes as she stood frozen before the imposing oak doors of St. Catherine's Academy for Girls. Her small fingers clutched the silver cross hanging from her neck, a gift from her late mother, while her other hand gripped the acceptance letter that had brought her here. The same letter that now seemed worthless beneath the stern gaze of Sister Genevieve Blackwell. "I'm sorry, child, but there must have been a mistake," Sister Genevieve said, arms crossed over her grey habit, her face a mask of regret mingled with resolve. "We simply cannot accept you at this time." 8-year-old Abigail's lower lip trembled. She had been so excited about attending this prestigious Christian school, had prayed every night for weeks that she would make friends and learn more about Jesus. The pink ribbons in her curly brown hair, carefully placed by her father that morning, suddenly felt too childish, too hopeful. "But the letter," Abigail whispered, holding up the crumpled paper. "My daddy said it means I'm supposed to be here." Sister Genevieve's eyes softened momentarily before hardening again. "The board made its decision yesterday. We have no more scholarships available, and your father's payment." It bounced. She leaned forward slightly. "Do you understand what that means, child?" Abigail didn't. Not really, but she understood rejection. First Mommy going to heaven last year, and now this. She swallowed hard, tasting salt as tears tracked down her cheeks. "Please, sister, I promise to be good. I'll help clean up. I know all my Bible verses." The words tumbled out as Abigail clutched her backpack straps, the colorful patterns suddenly blurring through her tears. "Rules are rules, child. Without tuition, there can be no admission." Sister Genevieve's voice was final. "Perhaps public school would be more suitable for your situation." The word situation hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken meaning that even a child could feel. Abigail's shoulders slumped as she took a step back, the stained glass windows of the church behind Sister Genevieve casting rainbow patterns that seemed to mock her sadness. "Can I at least pray in the church before I go?" Abigail asked, her voice small but steady. Something in Sister Genevieve's expression flickered. Surprise, perhaps, or discomfort. "The sanctuary is closed for cleaning. You should go home now. Your father is waiting." Across the street, Heath Whittaker watched from his weathered pickup truck, his heart breaking as he saw his daughter's dejected posture. He had tried so hard to give Abigail this opportunity, working double shifts at the lumber mill, selling his wedding ring, cutting every corner. But the final payment had indeed bounced when the mill temporarily closed last week. Now he would have to explain to his precious girl why another door had closed in their faces. "I'll pray for you anyway, sister," Abigail said, taking another step back. "Jesus says we should pray for everyone, even when we're sad." For the briefest moment, Sister Genevieve's composure faltered. Then she straightened her shoulders and gave a curt nod. "Good day, Miss Whittaker." With those words, she closed the heavy doors, leaving Abigail alone on the steps of what should have been her new beginning. "Daddy, why doesn't Sister Genevieve like me?" Abigail asked later that evening as they sat at their small kitchen table, eating macaroni and cheese, her favorite comfort food. Heath Whittaker set down his fork and reached across to squeeze his daughter's hand. At 36, he looked older, grief and hardship etching lines around his kind blue eyes. "It's not about liking or not liking, Abby. It's about money, which grown-ups worry about too much sometimes. Jesus says not to worry about tomorrow," Abigail stated with the simple certainty of childhood faith. Heath smiled, though his eyes remained sad. "That's right, sweetheart. And we're going to follow Jesus' advice. Riverview Elementary's a good school too. You'll make lots of friends there." "But they don't teach about God," Abigail said, pushing her macaroni around her plate. "Mommy wanted me to learn about God at school too, not just at church." Heath felt the familiar ache whenever Caroline was mentioned. His wife had been gone for 14 months now, but sometimes it felt like yesterday. "We'll keep learning about God at home and at church, just like we always have. And maybe," he hesitated, Maybe this is just God's way of telling us that St. Catherine's isn't where he wants you right now. Abigail considered this, her small brow furrowed in concentration. I think Sister Genevieve needs Jesus to help her smile more. She looks sad inside her eyes, like you do sometimes when you think I'm not looking. Heath blinked rapidly, amazed as always by his daughter's perceptiveness. Maybe you're right, Abby. Not everyone who works in a church has joy in their heart. I'm going to pray for her every night, Abigail declared, picking up her fork with renewed determination. And for us to have more money so I can go to St. Catherine's next year. Heath smiled, this time with genuine warmth. That's my girl. Now eat your dinner before it gets cold. Later, after tucking Abigail into bed and listening to her prayers, which indeed included earnest petitions for Sister Genevieve to find happiness, Heath sat at the kitchen table with his bills spread before him. The rejection from St. Catherine's was just one in a series of setbacks since Caroline's death from cancer had left them emotionally devastated and financially drained. Heath ran a hand through his sandy hair and closed his eyes. Lord, he whispered, I'm trying to have faith like my little girl, but it's getting harder. Show me the way forward, for her sake. He didn't expect an immediate answer, but the quiet peace that settled over him was answer enough for tonight. 3 weeks later, Abigail had settled into Riverview Elementary with the resilience of childhood. Though she missed the idea of attending St. Catherine's, she had made a few friends and particularly enjoyed art class with Ms. Bauer, who let them paint Bible stories, even though it wasn't a Christian school. Heath had found a new job at Hollingsworth Construction that paid better than the lumber mill, and things were looking up. Each night, Abigail faithfully included Sister Genevieve in her prayers, despite never having seen the woman again. Until one rainy Tuesday afternoon. Abigail was waiting for her father outside the public library, where she spent an hour after school until he could pick her up. The rain had started suddenly, and she'd forgotten her umbrella. Huddled beneath the minimal shelter of the library entrance, she watched the street through sheets of water. That's when she saw the familiar grey habit across the street. Sister Genevieve was leaving the pharmacy, clutching a white bag and looking anxiously at the sky. The nuns started to cross at the intersection, umbrella tilted against the wind. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. A delivery truck, going too fast for the slick conditions, skidded as it turned the corner. Sister Genevieve, halfway across the crosswalk, froze like a startled deer. Without thinking, Abigail dropped her backpack and ran. Her small voice cut through the sound of rain and traffic. "Look out! Sister, move!" Sister Genevieve's head turned toward the sound, but she remained paralyzed with fear as the truck bore down on her, its brakes squealing ineffectively against the wet pavement. Abigail reached her just in time, her small hands pushing with all their might against Sister Genevieve's side, propelling them both toward the curb as the truck slid by, missing them by inches. They tumbled onto the wet sidewalk, Sister Genevieve's umbrella cartwheeling away down the street. For a moment they lay there, rain pelting their faces, the nuns' prescription medications scattered around them. "Jesus, thank you for helping me push hard enough," Abigail whispered, then looked at Sister Genevieve with concern. "Are you hurt, sister?" Sister Genevieve stared at the child, recognition dawning in her shocked eyes. You're the Whitaker girl." "Abigail," she supplied helpfully, standing up and offering her small hand. "I've been praying for you." Sister Genevieve allowed herself to be helped to her feet, her usual composure shattered. "You've been praying for me." She looked at the truck, now stopped several yards away, its driver rushing toward them with a horrified expression. "You saved my life." "Jesus did," Abigail corrected, beginning to gather the scattered pill bottles. "I just helped. Are these important? My mommy had medicine like this when she was sick." Sister Genevieve took the bottles with trembling hands. "Yes, they're very important. For my heart condition." "Abigail!" Heath's voice cut through the rain as he ran toward them from his truck, panic on his face. "Oh my God, Abby!" "We're okay, Daddy," Abigail called. "Jesus, help me save Sister Genevieve." Heath reached them, pulling Abigail into a tight hug before looking up at the nun with a mixture of confusion and concern. "Sister Genevieve, from St. Catherine's?" The nun nodded, still visibly shaken. "Your daughter. She pushed me out of the way. The truck would have—" She couldn't finish the sentence. The truck driver joined them, apologizing profusely, but Sister Genevieve assured him she was unharmed, thanks to this little angel. After exchanging information and refusing an ambulance, the driver departed, leaving the three of them standing in the rain. "You should come dry off," Heath offered awkwardly. "Our house is just a few blocks away." Sister Genevieve hesitated, then looked down at Abigail, who was holding her hand as naturally as if they were old friends. Yes, that would be appreciated. Thank you." The Whitaker home was modest but warm, with handmade quilts and family photos creating an atmosphere of love despite the obvious financial struggles. Sister Genevieve sat at the kitchen table, a mug of hot tea warming her hands, her wet outer habit hanging in the bathroom to dry. Abigail, changed into dry clothes, sat across from her, legs swinging as she chattered about school, her Bible study group at church, and how she was saving her allowance to buy a new dress for Easter. Heath busied himself making grilled cheese sandwiches, occasionally joining the conversation, but mostly giving the strange pair time to talk. He couldn't help noticing how different Sister Genevieve looked away from the imposing backdrop of St. Catherine's. Younger somehow, and more human. "I still pray for you every night," Abigail was saying. "I ask Jesus to help you smile more and to forgive you for not letting me come to your school." Sister Genevieve nearly choked on her tea. "You forgive me?" Abigail nodded matter-of-factly. "Daddy says we have to forgive people even when they hurt our feelings. Jesus forgives us all the time, so we have to forgive too." "Out of the mouths of babes," Heath murmured, setting plates before them. Sister Genevieve stared at the simple meal as if it were a feast at the king's table. "I don't deserve your kindness. Either of you." "Nobody deserves kindness," Abigail said, taking a bite of her sandwich. "That's why it's special when we get it anyway. That's grace. Pastor Wesley taught us that." Sister Genevieve's eyes filled with tears. "You are an extraordinary child, Abigail Whitaker." "That's what her mother always said," Heath commented quietly, joining them at the table. A heavy silence fell, broken only by the sound of rain against the windows. "I lost my sister to cancer 5 years ago," Sister Genevieve said suddenly. "That's why I became a nun. I was angry at God, but I also wanted to make amends, I suppose. Serve him better than I had before." Heath nodded in understanding. "Caroline's been gone 14 months. Sometimes I'm still angry too." "I'm not angry," Abigail interjected. "Mummy's with Jesus now. She can see him up close instead of just feeling him in her heart like we do." Sister Genevieve regarded the child with wonder. "Such faith." "We have our good days and bad days," Heath admitted. "But Abby here keeps us both honest, don't you, kiddo?" Abigail grinned, revealing a missing front tooth. "Daddy says I'm his conscience with pigtails." They all laughed, and Sister Genevieve found herself relaxing for the first time in years. As the evening progressed, she learned more about the Whitakers. Heath struggled to keep them afloat after medical bills depleted their savings. Abigail's unwavering faith despite her losses, their simple but profound devotion to God and each other. By the time the rain stopped and Heath offered to drive her back to the convent, Sister Genevieve had made a decision. The following Sunday, after church at Riverside Community Chapel, Abigail tugged on her father's sleeve. "Daddy, look! It's Sister Genevieve!" Sure enough, the nun was standing near their car in the parking lot, though she was dressed in a simple grey skirt and blouse rather than her habit. She smiled nervously as they approached. "Sister," Heath greeted her, surprised. "Is everything all right?" "Please, call me Genevieve," she said. I wanted to thank you both again, and I have some news." She took a deep breath. "I spoke with the board at St. Catherine's. We've created a new scholarship program for deserving students who cannot afford full tuition. It's called the Faith and Grace Scholarship." Abigail bounced on her toes. That sounds pretty, Genevieve smiled. The first recipient has already been selected. Abigail Whitaker, would you accept a place at St. Catherine's for the spring semester? Abigail's eyes widened, and she looked up at her father, who appeared equally shocked. This isn't charity, Genevieve added quickly, seeing Heath's hesitation. It's redemption. For me as much as for the school. We've been so focused on prestige and finances that we've forgotten our primary mission, to nurture faith in young hearts. Are you serious? Heath asked, his voice rough with emotion. Completely. Genevieve handed him an envelope. All the details are here. And, she hesitated, I've also applied for a teaching position at St. Catherine's. I've been the administrator for so long, I've forgotten the joy of actually working with children. You're not going to be a nun anymore, Abigail asked, looking concerned. Genevieve laughed softly. I'll always be Sister Genevieve. But sometimes God calls us to serve in different ways. I think I can honor my sister's memory better by teaching than by hiding behind rules and regulations. Heath studied her face, seeing sincerity in her eyes. This is unexpected. God works in unexpected ways, Genevieve replied. Sometimes he sends a child to push us out of harm's way, both physically and spiritually. Abigail, who had been surprisingly quiet, suddenly threw her arms around Genevieve's waist. I told you Jesus would help you smile more. My prayers worked. Genevieve knelt down to Abigail's level, gently touching one of her pink hair ribbons. They certainly did, my dear. Your faith saved more than my life that day. It saved my soul. 6 weeks later, Abigail Whitaker walked confidently through the oak doors of St. Catherine's Academy for Girls. Her new uniform was crisp, her backpack still colorful, but filled with textbooks that would teach both mathematics and scripture. Her curly hair was adorned with the same pink ribbons, symbols now of answered prayer and new beginnings. In the main office, a painting had been added to the wall beside the traditional portraits of past principals. This one showed a small girl with outstretched hands, standing before a bright light. Beneath it, a plaque read, Faith like a Child, Matthew 18:3. Sister Genevieve, now teaching third-grade religion, kept her office door open throughout the day. Students came freely with questions about God, life, and sometimes just for a reassuring smile. The academic standards remained high at St. Catherine's, but something else had been added. A palpable sense of grace. Heath Whitaker still worked at Hollingsworth Construction, but he'd also started volunteering with the school's maintenance team on weekends. Slowly, he was finding his way back to the faith that his daughter had never lost. And every night, Abigail still prayed for Sister Genevieve. Not that she would smile more, for that prayer had been abundantly answered, but that others would experience the same transformation. That those who had lost their way might find it again through unexpected angels, divine timing, and the unwavering faith of a child. Thank you, Jesus, she whispered into her pillow, for using even little girls in your big plans. Help me push someone else toward you tomorrow. In the quiet of the night, as stars twinkled through her bedroom window, Abigail could almost hear the whispered response, Well done, good and faithful servant. And that was enough.